Welcome to my Kerapac guide. Kerapac is the first Elder Gold Rush dungeon boss and can be killed with up to 3 players. This is a guide geared towards beginners getting into the boss. Kerapac is comparable to Araxorn difficulty, just keep that in mind. Whenever you're ready, grab your cup of tea, sit back, relax and enjoy. Kerapac is a boss with a combat level of 3000. He has 525,000 life points in normal mode and 1.4 million in hard mode. He is immune to stuns, but he is not immune to poison, which means Cinderbanes and Weapon Poison++ are definitely recommended to use here. Kerapac has 4 phases in both normal and hard mode, but in hard mode the 4th phase has extremely hard mechanics, especially if you're solo. This guide will focus on normal mode only. As for requirements or recommendations before trying to solo this boss, I highly recommend level 90 plus combat stats, level 95 plus prayer for curses, 96 plus herbal for overloads, and at least 67 summoning. The reason I recommend the summoning level is because you're going to want to be using a BOB familiar for extra panic food, and if you're a high level player with high level summoning, a Ripper Demon is definitely worth using here. Instead of showing you 5 or 6 different setups, I'm going to go ahead and show you one setup which I recommend at least as the absolute minimum for solos. Trios are a different story. For solos, you'd want to have at least tier 70 DPS armor, being Armadillo for ranged, Bandles for melee, and Subjugation for magic. A tier 80 weapon or above is highly recommended because without it, you're going to struggle dealing damage, and you're going to have to deal with mechanics more often. The gear setup on screen shows you an Amulet of Souls, and I know that's expensive, but a Fury will probably do as well if you really want to try this boss. As for the pocket slot item, ignore that, that's simply a gold book for extra stats. As for your ammunition, if you're using range, you want to be using Ruby Criminal Bolts Enchanted, as they're very powerful once they proc. Your aura should of course be a Zerk aura, which is going to be either Reckless for ranged, Maniacal for magic, or Berserker for melee. I want to focus your attention to the inventory, and the first row we have 4 different potions, being the Holy Overload, which is a combination overload. You can simply use a regular overload if you really want to. Weapon Poison++. You can also simply just sip a Weapon Poison++ before going into the boss fight. Then on the 3rd slot we have a replenishment potion, which is an adrenaline potion and super restore in one. You're going to be using this for your regular DPS rotation. And then we have a super restore to restore prayer. We also have 3 sourdough and brews for tick eating, which is where you use 2 keybinds to eat 2 pieces of different food at once to heal up rapidly. We have a red potion, which is known as the Power Burst of Vitality, which effectively reduces damage by 50% once used, as it doubles your health temporarily, but it also reduces healing by 50%, so when using this potion, make sure you're at full health, because you're going to be wasting food if you eat food while your health points are doubled. We also have solid food, which are sharks. They could be sailfish, they could be rocktails, whatever you want. The bottom section of this recommended inventory has a few items you might not know about. First of which we have a Sun Spear, but we are only using it for a planted feet switch, and we also have that Ring of Vigor below that. We're going to be equipping these 2 items once we use Death Swiftness or Sunshine if you're a mage, as these are always used in a DPS rotation when using that ultimate. If you don't know about this, I recommend going and watching my DPS for Beginners video. Next to the Sun Spear, we have an Enhanced Excalibur, which can be activated every 5 minutes for a little bit of passive healing. Below that, we have the upgraded and charged Pontifex Shatter Ring, which will reduce the amount of stuns we take from Kerapac's slamming attacks. This is the ring you get from the City of Sintistan quest, and it must be charged with 1000 Resonant Anima of Jazz, which you can obtain from both the Kerapac boss and the Slayer creature. Finally, we have a one-handed weapon and a shield in our inventory, and we're going to be using this for Barricade to save us from the lightning wall attacks, because if you're a mid, maybe entry high level player, you're going to encounter that mechanic because your DPS won't be high enough. Here's another list of useful things you could bring along or use, and there's 2 different 500 Monolith Energy Relic setups depending on your own preferences. You can get to Kerapac by using the PVM Hub portal, although once that one is removed you'll need 1 kill count to attune your own, but you can also teleport using your Pontifex Shatter Ring. If you don't have either, you can manually walk to the boss by going to the archaeology area with your archaeology journal, entering the City of Sintistan as seen, and following the video to the entrance, and then simply starting a normal instance. If you really want to save money on death costs, you can also use practice mode, but that will not give you any drops. To start off, I'm going to explain each and every mechanic this boss has before getting into a full kill. Kerapac has 200,000 life points each phase, and he will phase at 50,000 life points, meaning you only need to do 150,000 life points of damage every single phase. The only exception is phase 4, where he heals to 75,000 life points, and all you need to do is take him down to 0 to kill him. Phases 1 to 3 are actually really interesting, as they are exactly the same in terms of rotation. He will do 3 auto attacks, then use the Shatter or Rift mechanic, then do 3 more auto attacks, do the Jumping Slam, 3 auto attacks, Lightning Wall, 7 auto attacks, and then he will repeat with Shatter. Something really important to keep in mind is that Kerapac spawns an echo that mimics the Shatter and Jumping Slam attack of the previous phases in the exact same place. In phase 2 you will only have to deal with 1 echo, but in phase 3 there will be an echo from both phase 1 and phase 2. Now this isn't the end of the world, but it does mean you need to pay a little bit of attention to where you place the Shatter mechanic. So what is the Shatter, aka Rift mechanic? Well, this is the first mechanic you'll encounter in the fight after 3 auto attacks. This is a mechanic that you can see coming when Kerapac says "I'll tear right through you," and at that point you need to use anticipation because this mechanic stuns you. Although the stun isn't that long, using anticipation beforehand is a good idea because you can move out of the way and place the mechanic where you want it to be. If you do get stunned, simply freedom and move out of the way. If for whatever reason you can't get out of the way, you'll get hit by these green little attacks which deal a lot of magic damage rapidly. You can reduce this damage to 1 by using the Devotion ability. The second mechanic you'll encounter is the Jumping Slam attack. Once Kerapac says "you will break beneath me" or "I will put you in your place," put on your melee prayer, as this will deal rapid melee damage. The best thing about this mechanic is you don't need to see the text or hear the sounds to see it coming, as he will fly into the air before slamming into you. This mechanic will stun you every single time unless you have used anticipation in advance or you have the charged Pontifex Shadow Ring in your inventory. This is why you need that ring upgrade ASAP. Whenever he does slam into you, which is a total of 3 times every time this mechanic comes along, get out of the way immediately because he will quite literally vibe there until you die. The only exception is the third attack, where he will end his animation early. So how do you avoid this mechanic? Well, you either don't, and you run around with the charged ring and use Devotion to reduce some of the damage, or you Surge, Escape, and Bladed Dive just in time out of the way to avoid it. The timing of this is very difficult, and if you mess it up, your mobility abilities will be on cooldown. If you do it right, however, you will be able to use your abilities again. I personally time it based on his staff moving and his wings pointing upward. It's pretty difficult to time, and honestly most of the time I just run around like a chicken. After each slam you can also Prayer Flick Soul Split to get back some of your healing, but that might be a little bit risky in terms of timing and looking at the wings as well. The third mechanic you'll encounter if you aren't using high tier weapons and you aren't able to DPS the boss down quickly will be the Lightning Walls. These walls deal a lot of typeless damage very quickly, and you will have them in each phase leading up to phase 4. Phase 1 will have 1 wall, Phase 2 will have 2 walls, and Phase 3 will have 3 walls, and it really becomes difficult at that point to survive, or you're just going to be chomping food constantly. If it's just 1 wall, you can simply surge through it. Equipping your shield and using the Resonance ability will reduce one of the typeless hits to nothing. If it's 2 or 3 walls, I definitely recommend standing in the middle of the arena, equipping your shield and one-handed weapon, and using Barricade at 100% Adrenaline. The reason for this is because it reduces all damage taken by a certain amount of time. But before you use Barricade, you want to use the Time Warp mechanic to save your adrenaline. Let's go over how that works for phases 2, 3, and 4, because in those phases you will have access to the Time Warp mechanic. Time Warp is a mechanic that allows you to take a snapshot of your current health, cooldowns, and active abilities, and of course your adrenaline, before after 10 seconds reducing you back to that original state. This means you could use your Time Warp ability at 100% adrenaline, Barricade for those lightning walls, and then after that you would be returned to your state with 100% adrenaline ready to go with Death Swiftness to deal damage again. You can not only use this mechanic to save yourself from the lightning walls, but you can also use it to greatly increase your DPM or to extend the duration of your ultimate ability. You can change the location of this ability by going to your edit layout settings, choosing extra event action button, and then dragging it to wherever you want it to be, saving it, and done. Now that you know how Kerapac works, I'll show you a full uncut kill of me killing the boss in the unaugmented gear setup with the inventory setup you saw earlier, as I don't think it's worth showing what I do with my own setup, as I'm able to ignore most of the mechanics by simply DPSing through the boss and just yeeting around. Doing this boss without the finer things in Runescape like Cinderbanes, Limitless and good perks is a lot more difficult than you might think. I start off the kill by being overloaded, weapon poison +++ on and all that kind of stuff. I then equip my Ring of Vigor, planted feet switch, and I use my ultimate ability and then immediately sip my replenishment, aka adrenaline potion. I'm then ready to attack Kerapac as soon as he comes down by praying magic, because you'll be praying magic for the entire fight basically, apart from one mechanic. I use a couple thresholds, then I use anticipate and move out of the way because the shatter aka rift mechanic is coming. Once it's over there I can move back and then use more thresholds inside my death swiftness. The reason I use the anticipation ability is so that I don't get stunned by the shatter mechanic. I then try and deal as much damage as possible in my death swiftness, but it won't be long before the jumping slam attack. Once Kerapac jumps into the air I start praying melee and I escape just in time. Again I see his wings pointing upward and I surge. Oh wait, this time it wasn't the right timing. Now I'll be messing it up a couple more times, but you just simply take damage. It isn't the biggest deal ever, but it does hurt. After this, I've phased him at 50,000 life points, so I shouldn't be using a threshold here, and I should be building up for the next phase. Remember, you want to put on Pray Magic again every time he stops doing the jumping slam attack. At this point, I'm trying to build up to 100% adrenaline with full health to use the Time Warp ability you can see near my defensives. Ideally, you want to use it as early as possible and then use Death Swiftness as you see a little bit later, because he will be doing the jumping attack very soon. And running around not using your Death Swiftness is far from ideal. It is what it is, and I purposely picked out this clip for that reason. Now I'm going to try and do as much damage as possible, but a jumping slam attack is going to come pretty soon, and it's the same thing. Pray melee, try and avoid the slams by surging or using escape, and you will reduce the damage taken to you. But don't forget to keep dealing damage and potentially soul split in between when Kerapac is in the air. Now as you can see, Kerapac still has a good chunk of life left, and I know this and I can see this, so I move back towards the center. The lightning wall attack at this point is probably inevitable, so I'm going to try and build up to barricade. Once I'm near 100% adrenaline, I can see the lightning wall coming, so I equip my shield, use barricade, and then use time warp again. Notice how I ate up before using time warp, because otherwise you'll be set back to low HP and there is a chance you'll still get hit by the lightning wall and die after your barricade ends. Now as you can see, time warp is back and we have 100% adrenaline, so it's time to pop out Death Swiftness and start DPSing Kerapac down. Finally, he's phased and we move on to phase 3, arguably the harder phase of the boss fight, because if you're too slow, you're going to get 3 lightning walls. Other than that, the phase is really similar, but you can see the other echoes are slamming down, so it's harder and harder to avoid those jumping slam attacks because I ran around like a chicken. Alright, now again, the phase is almost over, but I know he's going to be using his lightning wall before I finish him off. So I build up to barricade again, stand near the center, equip my shield, use time warp, and then use barricade to be safe from those 3 lightning walls, as those will probably kill you. Now I want you to focus on one little interesting thing, as when I come back with 100% adrenaline, my barricade is also reset. That is the power of the time warp mechanic. But yeah, you want to go back to your Death Swiftness and start dealing damage, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in this phase forever. Now the final phase is actually one of the easier phases as long as you have enough food, because it's simply a DPS race while Kerapac is hitting you with some heavy magic hits. You can reduce damage by using the devotion or debilitate abilities, but you can also equip your shield, turn off your prayer, and get a resonance every now and then for free healing. Other than that, it's simply using your thresholds and keeping your health high, and this phase will not be a problem whatsoever, and you will have Kerapac down in no time. I hope this full kill shows you how to deal with the mechanics and shows you that even though I'm experienced at this boss with over 100 kills right now, if I'm using this gear, I'm going to have to eat a lot of food, and you probably will too when learning. I hope this guide was helpful, and the reason I'm not including hard mode in this guide, or I'm not working on a hard mode guide just yet, is because there's probably going to be some changes. At least there are some rumors about changes to hard mode, and trio is just simply too good and too chill to do when compared to doing solo hard mode Kerapac, which I currently have lost all interest in. If you enjoyed the video or found the guide helpful, leave a like down below and maybe even consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.